Could having an additional $27,531.87 in a year change your life? That's how much I earned in the year 2022 as a part-time reseller on the side of my full-time job as a high school choir teacher. And I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that it has changed not only my life, but the life of my family as well. In today's video, I am going to share with you what sold for me in the last week of 2022, but I'm also going to be sharing the top 10 tips that I attribute to helping me earn that amount. Hopefully, by sharing them with you, you can start earning your first 1,000 or your first 10,000 or even way more than I earned in the year 2022 just by applying some of these tips to your reselling business. Stay tuned. Hi everyone, my name is Becky Park, and like I shared in the introduction of this video, I resell used and sometimes new clothing on reselling platforms online, and it's something that I do on the side of my full-time job as a high school choir teacher. If you know anything about teachers and how much money we make, we are amongst the richest in all of America. That is a lie. We make pennies. We make very little money. And my husband is also a teacher. He actually teaches first grade. So we are a family of 4 living on 2 teacher salaries. And you can absolutely get by. And I'm not going to sit here and say I wasn't able to put food on the table and I couldn't clothe my children. Like, I absolutely could, even with 2 teacher salaries. But that being said, before I discovered reselling, we were for sure living paycheck to paycheck. We had periods of time when we were in debt, and it just was a grind. You know, it was hard, and we weren't able to really go on vacations. We weren't able to really help out our parents financially. When we talked about things like kids doing extracurriculars, it was always a very serious conversation of, can we afford this? Can we afford to have our kids sign up for these lessons and do this sport? It was tough. It was manageable, but there were some tough times. I discovered reselling in December of 2017. I think I sold my first thing on Poshmark in January of 2018, and I have been hooked ever since. One, because I have learned how to make some really good money reselling part-time, but also because not only am I making money, but it honestly is a blast. There are aspects of it that maybe are not as exciting as others, but for the most part, it is a really fun way to make money on the side. And I know that right now I sound like one of those MLM sellers and I'm like trying to get you to join my pyramid scheme, but I literally have nothing to gain if you decide that you want to be a reseller as well. Actually, it probably hurts me in the sense of you're going to be sourcing at the same places that I source, and you're going to be competing with me online on these different reselling platforms. But I'm sharing this information with you because reselling really has changed my life. And if you're looking for a side hustle that can change your life as well, this could be it. I don't know. So as you're watching this video, ask yourself if this is something that you want to do. And if so, definitely make sure that you subscribe to my channel because I have tons of videos with tips and tricks on how to resell, how to do it more efficiently, what kinds of things to sell, my experiences with reselling, and so much more. So definitely hit that subscribe button. But like I said earlier, what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to share with you what sold for me in the week of December 26th through January 1st of 2023. I do these kinds of videos at least once a week where I'm sharing with you everything that's sold because I think there's a lot of value in learning what kinds of items you should be on the lookout for when you are looking for things to resell online. And by learning what kinds of things sell well for me versus what kinds of things I'm only getting like a $5 or $6 profit on, hopefully you're able to go into these thrift stores or estate sales or garage sales with a little bit more knowledge and information so that you can make better choices when it comes to what you're picking up to sell. But I'm also going to be sharing with you some tips that I have learned along the way when it comes to reselling that helped me make more than $25,000 in net profit in the year 2022. So if that sounds exciting to you, hit that like button and let's jump right in. So we're going to start by talking about my sales from Monday, which was December 26th. This was the day after Christmas. I was not expecting this to be a really great sales week because people had just spent a ton of money, but it did turn out to be a pretty decent sales week. And the first thing that sold was over on eBay. It was this Polo Ralph Lauren long sleeve polo shirt in a men's size large. It was made of 100% cotton, as a lot of their pieces are. And this item sold on eBay for $24.99. That is something that my mother-in-law gave me actually, and so I didn't have any money into it, and my net profit was $20.36. On Tuesday, which was December 27th, I sold 0 things. Again, not surprised. I was not expecting a lot of sales this week, and thankfully that was my only $0 sales day of the week. On Wednesday, which was December 28th, things definitely started picking up a little bit, which I was very grateful for. And the first thing to sell was over on Poshmark. It was this Simply Vera Wang black faux fur vest in a size large for women. It did have pockets, and this is typically a brand that I pass on. This is not part of the actual Vera Wang, like super luxury brand. You know, Vera Wang makes a lot of gowns and stuff like that for celebrities. You see a lot of celebrities wearing her stuff on the red carpet. This is a diffusion line sold at Kohl's. Prices range from like $15 to $50 most likely. This vest probably retailed for like $50 or something like that. So I sold it for $25, and I had $2 into it because it was something that I got from a reseller. She reached out to me because she was like, you know what, I am pretty new to reselling and I have accumulated a lot of clothes that I sourced, but I have realized that I hate selling clothes, and I know you love selling clothes, so would you like to buy all of my clothes off of me? I will sell it to you for extremely cheap. And I was like, sure, let's do it. I don't remember exactly how many pieces it was. I want to say it was around 500, and I had about $2 into each item, I think, and so I made a net profit on that of $18. This is a brand that I pass on all the time if I find it at the thrift store. Maybe I would have picked up something like this because it was a vest, but even so, I probably would have left it behind. Thankfully, I only had a little bit into it, so I did make a decent profit. On Poshmark, I sold this really great sweater. I was so excited about this because I thought this was beautiful. It was this vintage Forenza, which I learned was a line sold through The Limited back in the day, in the 90s. It was this embroidered knit floral striped sweater in a women's size large. I just thought it was gorgeous. And it definitely hits a lot of check marks when it comes to what's trending. And that's my first tip. So let's get into that. But first, let's finish talking about this sale. So it sold for $40. I only had $1.82 into that item because it was an item that came to me in a box that I bought off of Fleek, which is a vintage wholesale website or app. And I had purchased a box of 25 men's vintage sweaters. Now you might be saying, you just said this is a women's piece. This is not a men's piece. Yeah, there were, I think, 1 or 2 women's pieces in there. There were a few flawed pieces in there, but overall, it was a really great box. And actually, if you want to see what was in that box, I have that video right here where I show you all the pieces. And I only had $1.82 into each of those items because it was a partnership with Fleek, and they gave me a discount when I purchased my first box, and that's why my cost of goods was so low. So I made a net profit of $23.23 off of that sweater. And again, it was just such a cool piece. I was so excited to have it and list it and sell it eventually. But like I said, this piece, I think, checked a lot of the boxes when it came to what is trending right now. And that is my first tip when it comes to how can you earn $25,000 from reselling as a side hustle. The first tip that I have is research what kind of stuff is selling well online. You're already doing a good job of that because you're watching this video. One of the best ways that I have found to do research as far as what is trending or what's selling well online is to watch what sold videos. That is my very favorite type of video to watch when it comes to reselling content on YouTube. There are a ton of resellers out there who make videos similar to this, and there's just so much information to gain from these videos because it's not just what they're picking up at the thrift store, which is fun to watch, but I think there's so much more value in seeing how much they were able to sell these items for and to learn how long they had to hold on to those items, if they had to, run like crazy sales in order to sell those items. I think there's a lot of value in watching these what sold videos, but you can do research a lot of other ways as well. You can flip through fashion magazines like In Style or Vogue and just get an idea for what the overall aesthetic is right now as far as what's trending. You can go to the mall and walk around and look at stores and see what kinds of things people are selling. And while you're at the mall, just pay attention to what people are wearing, especially people who are shopping at those stores. Even like fast fashion stores like Forever 21 or Zara, if you go in there and not only look at what's selling reselling, but look at the people who are shopping. I think that there's a lot of research that you can do that way. You can even just go on reselling platforms and look at things that have sold recently. One of the ways that I like to do research that way is I'll go on the Poshmark app, I will filter by what items have sold, and I will filter by price. I'll look at things that sold for $50 or more because, I want to know what kinds of things are selling in that price range. And I'll look at the styles of items that have sold recently. I'll look at brands. I'll look at what colors seem to be coming up more often than not. I'll look at what categories are selling more often than not. It's a really great way to learn what is selling on the platform that you are trying to sell on. So from doing all of that kind of research, I had learned that vintage is selling. I know that there's still a market for like a bohemian aesthetic, things that are very colorful, floral prints. I know that just kind of like textured knits, 3D knits, those things are very popular. I know that the 90s are super popular. So for all those reasons and from all the research that I've done, I knew that this was something that people would pay a decent amount for. And that's how I was able to sell it for $40 and make a profit of $23.23. So tip number one, do your research so that when you go out to source, you have so much information and knowledge in your brain regarding what kinds of things you should buy and how much you should spend on those items while you're sourcing. The next thing that sold on eBay was this Columbia purple interchange core winter jacket. It had a zip-in fleece, it was in a women's size large, and it had a ton of stains all over it. I did not want to take the time to try and get the stains out, which means I didn't want to ask my husband to get the stains out because he's the one that does the laundry in our house and gets stains out for me for my reselling business. But I didn't want to do that because I knew that even if I got all the stains out, this was not going to sell for that much. So even with all of the stains, it still sold for $25. This was something that I got from that reseller who sold me all of the clothes that she had accumulated over the year of reselling. And so I only had $2 into it. I made a profit of $19.72. And the reason I listed this, despite the fact that it had all of these stains, is because this sold on December 28th. I probably listed this literally only like the week before. I listed it because I knew people were going to be looking for winter jackets. And honestly, a lot of times with stuff like this, people don't care if there are stains. Maybe they're just thinking, I'll just get it out myself. Or it's more about the utility of the item than it is, how do I look in this item? They just need a winter jacket. They don't want to pay a ton for it. $25, done. And that's why I went ahead and listed it. Even though there were some flaws, I still made a profit of $19.72 on that. So not one of the tips for my top 10 tips, but a tip, I guess, would be even if things have flaws, if it's something that people are going to be looking for at the time that you list it, go ahead and list it anyway. You can still sell it, make some money, and not have to spend the time and energy it takes to clean the item or get that flaw taken care of. Sometimes it's just not worth it, and you can still make some good money. The next sale was over on Mercari. It was this pair of Ulu, that's ULU, brown leather. The style name was Event, waterproof fur-lined lace-up boots in a women's size 6.5. I found these at my local Goodwill for $7.99, and there weren't a lot of comps for this brand. The comps that I found were good, there just were not a lot. So I could tell it wasn't a brand that a lot of people were maybe looking for, but I picked them up last year for the same reason that I shared with you regarding why I listed that Columbia jacket. I picked it up because I was like, people are looking for boots when it's cold outside. And they just weren't looking for these boots. But I finally sold them 1 year later for $38. I had $7.99 into them, so my net profit, once you factor in, Mercari's fees and my cost of goods, was $24.61, which, still gave me a profit of $20 or more, which is what I'm aiming for in the year 2023. But man, those took a while to sell. And I thought they were pretty cute, but it took a year to find the right buyer. The next thing to sell was this pair of Isaac Mizrahi Live, which Isaac Mizrahi just in general doesn't sell, very well, but like the Live diffusion line sells for even less. So this was a pair of purple pull-on elastic waist pants. They were in a size 8 tall. These sold for $12 on Mercari. I had $3.92 into them. They came to me from a wholesale pallet that I purchased off of a reseller, which is the only reason they were in my house. I would have never picked these up and sourced them myself, but I went ahead and listed them because I wanted to make as much money as I could off of that pallet. So I made a net profit of $6.03. And now that money can go towards buying better inventory. On Thursday, which was December 29th, I sold on Poshmark this Columbia U of I Illini full zip fleece jacket in a size small. So I live on the campus of the University of Illinois. I'm like maybe 10 minutes away from it. And it was pretty funny because this jacket sold to someone who lives in my same town, but she had to pay for me to ship it to her, and she probably lived like 5-10 minutes away. So that was kind of silly. I don't even know if she knew that that's where I was from. I wish there was a way that she could have just reached out and been like, can I just pick this up from you? Can we meet at like the Meyer parking lot or something? But you know, it is what it is. I made the sale and it sold pretty quick. So that sold for $29 and I made a net profit of $23.20 on that. And that was my net profit because I had no cost of goods into this, because I got this from a daughter of a friend of mine. And that is my second tip. So the second tip that I'll share with you on how to make $25,000 or more in net profit in a year of reselling part-time is to find community. The easiest way to do that, I think, is to start off by building community online. I have some dear friends who I have never met in real life. We just know each other from Instagram or YouTube, but they are dear friends because they also are resellers. And I'm especially close with, I feel like, people who resell part-time, because not only do they resell, but they also know what it feels like to do that on the side of having another full-time job. And I've built that community by just being active online, on Instagram, on YouTube, by leaving comments on people's videos, on Instagram, by, learning from other resellers, by commenting on their posts, by, talking with them directly in the DMs on Instagram. And I have gotten to know so many people and really build very real relationships, even though they're online and with people that I have not met and most likely will never meet in my lifetime. I also have a local community of resellers, which came from hosting Posh and Sips back in the day, which came from just people reaching out because they've gotten to know me through YouTube or Instagram, and them reaching out to me in my DMs and saying, hey, I live in your area as well. And that has been really cool because through building community, I have been able to come across some really cool sourcing opportunities. Like I already shared in this video, I have had people reach out to me about buying their inventory from them, whether it's because they're moving or because they no longer want to resell or because they don't want to resell clothes. I've gotten some great inventory that way. I would also include in that word community my friends who don't resell at all, but just know that I do, and therefore they just give me a ton of stuff that they're no longer wearing and I get to sell their stuff for free. Community is huge when it comes to reselling because reselling is very isolated by nature. You're just kind of doing all these things yourself. You're going out and sourcing yourself. You're spending a lot of time on your laptop listing, and you're spending a lot of time by yourself photographing the pieces that you need to sell. So it can be very lonely, but if you have a community of people who are encouraging you and spurring you on, it becomes easier to do, and you're able to learn a lot more about reselling that way. And sometimes you even benefit from your community when it comes to inventory. So this particular piece I got from the daughter of a friend of mine. She was in high school and she was watching my videos, and she actually started reselling herself. She started reselling stuff that her and her siblings no longer wore, and she would text me sometimes and ask me questions about Poshmark and what should I do in this situation. And that was really cool to see a teenager just grow in her entrepreneurial skills and learn how to resell. But this past summer, she reached out because she was going to college, and she said she didn't want to take all this stuff with her that she had listed. So did I want to take it off of her hands? And I was like, oh my gosh, absolutely. And that was so cool to just kind of come full circle that way. Someone that I taught how to resell eventually gave me all of the stuff that she had picked up from what she had learned from me. And she said, I definitely think I want to keep reselling even when I go to college, but I'll just find new stuff when I go there. I don't want to take all this stuff because I have to bring all this other stuff for my dorm room. So this sale really was a result of community, and it is my number 2 tip when it comes to finding success as a part-time reseller. The next sale was over on Mercari, and it was by the brand Frame, which is a great denim brand. It was this I think the style name is Le Panel, and the colorway was Belfast. It was this light wash button-up midi skirt in a women's size 29. I picked this up at a local consignment store because they were having a 90% off clearance sale, and so I only had $1.90 into it. It sold for $40, and I made a net profit of $32.44. And that takes me to my third tip, which is do everything in your power to keep your reselling business separate from your personal life. What I mean by that is when you decide that you want to resell seriously and you want to earn some serious income doing so, I would suggest doing things like creating an email account or even social media accounts that are specifically for the reselling part of your life so that you don't get those things mixed up with your personal life. So I have an email that I use just for reselling, and that is where I get emails from places like my local consignment stores or Plato's Closet, alerting me to any sales or deals that they have going on. And that way I only see those emails when I'm in like my reselling frame of mind. That's when I'll check that email account and then I'll be like, oh, there's these sales going on and I'm already like thinking about reselling. So then that information isn't going to distract me when I'm at work, let's say, if I was using my work email to receive those alerts about sales from consignment stores and Plato's, that would just kind of be jarring because I'm in work mode, but then I'm getting information about sales that I want to go to for reselling. So I do recommend keeping things separate. I also recommend, if you're going to be serious about reselling, having separate entities for your money, having a separate bank account for your reselling business and a separate credit card that you use just for your reselling business so that you can keep track of all of your business expenses and they're not mixed in with your personal expenses. So this frame denim skirt sale was a result of me getting an email in my reselling inbox regarding this 90% off sale that they were going to have. So for a host of reasons, all of which I cannot get into in this video because then this video would be 8 hours long, I do suggest keeping reselling stuff as separate as possible because I think it's going to help you stay sane. The next sale that we'll talk about on Mercari was this pair of Chico's The So Slimming Girlfriend crop red jeans in a Chico's size 00, which I think is like an extra small. These sold for $15. I'm not surprised because color denim is not super trendy right now. It's not something that a lot of people are looking for, but I listed it because it was something that came to my house as part of that wholesale pallet from a reseller. So I had $3.92 into these jeans because that was my average cost of goods per sellable item from that box. So I made a net profit of $8.64. But again, I was just trying to make as much money as I could off of that box. A lot of items did sell in that $15 to $20 range, but there were some really great pieces in there that sold for a lot more as well. So, that's kind of what you expect when you're just sent a bunch of stuff and you didn't pick it out yourself. The next sale was over on Depop, and this was something that I bought myself at a Goodwill, and it was this gray long sleeve shirt with like the Stussy logo on the front and on the back, I think. It was in a women's size medium, and it was made of 100% cotton. I was in middle school and high school in the 90s, and Stussy was all the rage. I don't think I ever owned any Stussy because I couldn't afford it. If I remember correctly, it was pretty expensive. So it still holds a special place in my heart because it was something that I always wanted to wear and just couldn't. So when I found it at this Goodwill, I was like, I probably just need this, even though I don't know if it's going to resell for a ton. But it actually sold for $30 on Depop. That is with me paying for shipping because I do pay for shipping on Depop. I had $4.99 into that from that Goodwill. And so I made a net profit of $15.53 on that shirt. Now, my fourth tip will not come as a surprise to any of you if you've been watching my YouTube channel, but that tip is to cross-list. And what that means is if you are pretty comfortable with one platform, let's say Poshmark is your platform of choice and you know it inside out, I would personally recommend eBay being your next platform because, in my opinion, the reason why you cross-list is because you want as many eyes on your listing as possible. And while Poshmark has a great audience, eBay has way more people buying on that platform than Poshmark does, and that is a reason why people would cross-list. They would put an item up for sale on as many platforms as possible to get as many eyes on their listings as possible to hopefully sell more items and more quickly that way. On this particular day, December 29th, I sold on 3 different platforms, and that's because I sell on, I think, 6 or 7 different platforms. I don't list all of my items on all of my platforms, but I do list most of my items on at least 4 or 5 platforms. And that's because as a part-time seller, I want to maximize my effort, and it doesn't take me that much time to get one listing on 4 or 5 different platforms. And that's because of a Chrome extension that I use called List Perfectly. There are a lot of other softwares out there that help you cross-list. I can't speak to any of them because I've only ever tried List Perfectly, and it is a software that I use every single day in my reselling business because I cross-list all of my listings when I list them. And since I try to list every day, I am using List Perfectly to cross-list those listings very quickly because I've learned how to use List Perfectly since I've been using it for so long now. I'm able to get those items up onto so many different platforms extremely quickly, and by doing so, I'm able to make more sales because I'm on more platforms. Now, some people will argue if you just focus on one platform, you're going to make a lot more sales that way because you can list more items on that one platform. And that definitely is a school of thought, but I personally like to be on a lot of different platforms, especially if one platform just for whatever reason isn't doing very well. I still have all of these other platforms that can kind of pick up the slack a little bit. So that is my number 4 tip, is try cross-listing to a number of platforms if you feel like you know the ins and outs of one platform and you're ready for the challenge of trying out a new platform. The next day of sales that we'll talk about is Friday, December 30th. On Poshmark, I sold this pair of Banana Republic Heritage Black Buttonfly Straight Leg Jeans in a men's size 32 by 30. These sold for $18. They were something that I got from my friend when he moved. He just gave me a ton of stuff that he didn't want to take with him when he moved. It wasn't reselling stuff. He's not a reseller. It's just his own stuff that he didn't want to take with him because he no longer wore this stuff. So I gave him a bunch of money for his clothes, and it came out to about $2 an item. So I made a net profit of $12.40. I had sold those jeans before on eBay and they got returned because of fit, but I was able to sell them again very quickly after I relisted them on Poshmark. The next thing to sell was this Talbot's red tweed blazer with one button in the front. It was in a women's plus size 16, and this sold for $42. I had $7.99 into it from a local thrift store, and so I made a net profit of $23.89. Once you factor in Poshmark's 20% fees and my cost of goods and the fact that a shipping discount was offered. Now, this takes me to tip number 5, and that is to automate as much of your reselling business as possible. If you are reselling part-time like me, that means you only have at most an hour or maybe a few hours in a day to devote to your reselling business. And I don't know about you, but even if I was reselling full-time, I would not want to spend my time doing something that a program could just do for me. So one example that I'm thinking of is if you sell on Poshmark, you know that one thing you kind of have to do to make sales on Poshmark is share your listings. You have to share your closet, and you have to do it pretty frequently. You know that that's just something you have to do if you want your item to pop up at the top of search when someone is searching for something in particular on Poshmark. However, to sit there and share each individual listing from your Poshmark closet takes a really long time. And yes, Poshmark has added a new tool to help you do it much faster, but even to do that, you have to sit there in front of your computer and remember to share your entire closet. It's just time in front of my computer that I don't want to spend, and it's something that I would have to remember to do often, to sit there in front of my computer and remember to share my entire closet. So rather than doing that, I use a Chrome extension called Posher VA, which will share my closet for me. It literally just shares all day. I select the speed at which I want it to share, and it does a lot of other things for me too. It can follow other Poshers for me. It can share other people's listings. And one of the features that I really like about it is that it will send offers to likers for me. And oftentimes that will result in a sale, just like what happened here with this Talbot's blazer. I have Posher VA set up to send out offers to likers 5 minutes after someone has liked an item. And when they send an offer, they also have to offer a shipping discount, and I have it set up so that they offer the smallest shipping discount there is, and every once in a while I will make a sale as a result of sending offers to likers through Posher VA. And because I have Posher VA doing it, I don't have to sit there and send out those offers manually. Posher VA just does it for me 5 minutes after someone likes an item, and that way I don't have to sit there and babysit Poshmark in that way as well. It's not only a huge time saver, but it's also a burden off my shoulders in terms of having to remember to sit down and share my closet, or having to remember to sit down and send out offers to watchers. It just takes care of that part of my business for me. So it frees up space in my brain, it frees up time in my schedule, and I would suggest automating as much of your reselling business as possible so that you have more time to spend on other parts of your business that only you can do. The next day of sales that we'll talk about is the last day of 2022, which was December 31st. It was a Saturday, and I actually had some decent sales. I was surprised because I figured everyone would be getting ready for like New Year's Eve parties, but instead they were shopping in my eBay store. But first, I did have one Poshmark sale, and it was this FS Limited purple reversible hooded rain jacket in a women's size extra large. It was water repellent and just perfect to wear outdoors on a dreary, rainy, drizzly day. This sold for $34, again with discounted shipping because of Posh VA, and I made a net profit of $23.48 on that. This was another item that came to me from the reseller who was like, I don't want to sell clothes anymore. So I bought it off of her and I had about $2 into it. This does take me to my sixth tip. Sixth is such a hard word to say, but that tip is list all of the things even if you don't love it. Now, this is pretty specific to me. I know a lot of resellers who refuse to even bring home anything that they don't love, that they themselves would not wear. I am not that type of reseller. I do not curate my closet. The only platform that I do curate what I list on there, and this is a shameless plug, but it is on my own website, which is shopbeckypark.com. That's the only place that I only list items that I am truly passionate about and excited about, things that I myself would wear. In fact, this Spell and the Gypsy top is going to get listed in my February drop because I just don't reach for it as often as I feel like I should in order to warrant keeping it. So instead I'm going to go ahead and list it, but it is like one of the pieces that I was so excited about. And so that's the only platform that I curate. But other than that, I will list things even if I'm like, what in the world? Which is kind of how I felt about this jacket and how I felt about a lot of the stuff that I sold this week. But I will list it because I know that it will sell and I know that there's profit to be made. And this is especially true of, situations where I am purchasing pallets or I'm buying people's inventory off of them. I don't really have a say in what's going to show up at my house. And so even though a lot of those pieces are not pieces that I would have necessarily sourced if I were out at the thrift store, because it's already in my house, because I've already paid something for that item, I just go ahead and list it. And I'm more often than not pleasantly surprised by how much I'm able to get for that item. And a lot of times I don't even sit on those listings for very long. Like this item. This item I did not have listed for very long at all. I want to say at the longest it was listed for 2 weeks, and then it sold and I made more than $20 on it. That would be my sixth tip, is even if you come across something that you're like, this is just not my jam, if it makes sense to pick it up because of the cost of goods and if the comps are there, definitely consider it. And again, that only works if you, like me, don't care about curating what you are selling on your various reselling platforms. And then on eBay, I sold this new with tags Elamar Maya watercolor floral tank swim top in a size medium. It was only the top. If it included the bottom, I'm sure it would have sold a little bit faster and for a little bit more money. But as it was, it sold for $20. It was part of the wholesale palette that I purchased off of a reseller, so I had $3.92 into it, and I made a net profit of $12.46. That sold in December. It is now like late January, and especially now I'm noticing that there's a lot of interest in my swimwear. I don't have a lot, but already people are trying to find, the swimwear that they need for spring break, and they're just looking forward to warmer months and the activities that come with warmer months. So if you have swimwear, even though it feels crazy to list that stuff in January and February, I say go ahead and list it. The next thing to sell was another Talbot's piece. This was a 100% cashmere Audrey animal print 3/4 sleeve sweater in a women's size large. This sold for $35. It was promoted at 3%, and I had $5.99 into it. It was something that I got at a Goodwill near where my in-laws live, and it was missing the label tag. So when I saw it, I saw the care tag that said that it was made of 100% cashmere. And what I did was I looked at the RN number to figure out the actual brand. And that's how I was able to figure out that it was Talbot's. But this was listed for a while. I'm not quite sure why. I don't feel like I had it listed too high, especially for cashmere. But it did eventually sell for $35, and I made a net profit of $22.47. And this takes me to my next tip. And that is, when you are able, do a little bit more work in preparation for times when you won't be able to do anything. So like I said, I am a high school choir teacher, and I have some busy seasons. I have seasons where we're preparing for a huge performance. We have a lot of extra rehearsals. The performance itself takes up a lot of time after school. And there are weeks throughout the school year where I am not able to do the things that I need to do in order to be a successful reseller. You know, one of the things that you learn when you're reselling is that you have to be consistent. You have to be consistent with your listing. You have to be consistent with your shipping. You want to just kind of develop a habit of doing certain things every single day, and that's how you can find consistent success as a reseller as well. However, when I'm in those busy seasons, I don't have the time to sit down and do all of the listings that I want to get done in that day. And that's where this tip really helps out, is if in the days that you don't have that much to do, you can do a little bit more to create kind of a backlog of stuff to pull from on those busy days. That's going to help tremendously. So for example, I use List Perfectly to cross list, but I also use it as my inventory management system. And that means everything that I have purchased for my reselling business lives in List Perfectly. So when I get an item home from the thrift store, I will immediately create a listing for it, and I will put the information in there regarding how much I paid for the item, what day I picked up the item, and where I picked up the item. When I get around to photographing the item, I just pull up that existing listing and I just add the photographs to that listing. And then the next step is, when I have time, when I want to list that item, I will go ahead and fill out the listing title, the item description. I will put in all the information regarding like the materials used to make that item, where the item was made. I will insert the amount that I want to list the item for. All of that is put into the listing on List Perfectly. And once the listing is complete, then I will go ahead and cross-list that item to all of the platforms that I want to list it on. So in 2022, my goal was to list 5 items a day to all of the platforms that it would make sense to list that particular item to. In 2023, my goal is to do maybe at least 7. If I could kick it up to 7, that would be amazing. And I went with 5 listings in the year 2022 because that was manageable, even on days where there was kind of a lot going on. However, on those days where I had like a concert or I was preparing for like a big performance with my students, I would come home really late at night. I just wouldn't even be able to get those 5 listings up. And so the tip is, on really slow days when you have a lot of extra time, maybe instead of only fully filling out 5 listings on List Perfectly, I could do 10 so that I have 5 extra ones for days when I just don't have time to build listings from scratch and to write in the listing title and to look up comps to see how much I should list items for and to fill out the description for each listing. If I've already done that for 5 additional listings, and all I have to do on days where I'm swamped is cross-list those listings to all the different platforms, then I'm going to be able to at least get those listings up because I did a little extra work on super slow days. This also applies to when I'm photographing. I don't just photograph 5 items a day because I need to get 5 listings up. Instead, what I will do is I will set aside 2 hours during the weekend where I can photograph as many items as possible. And that way I have a ton of pictures ready to go into their listings. And if I don't have time in one day to get some photographs done, it's okay because I already have a ton of pictures that I took for a bunch of different pieces over the weekend. So if there's ever an opportunity to work ahead, I would say definitely seize those opportunities, knowing that you're gonna have days when your full-time job or even just things within your family are going to pull you from being able to do what you know you need to on a daily basis in order to be successful as a reseller. Do a little bit more work on those slow days so that you can still be consistent. The next thing to sell on eBay was an amazing sale. It was this Dress to Kill purple striped blazer jacket. It was one size fits most, as is most pieces by this brand, and it did have pockets. It was a really interesting piece. It's a brand that I love to resell because it has a really great resale value. It's a brand that I love to resell because it has a really great resale value. And I found it at a local thrift store for $2.99. I'm so used to having to pay up for this brand at a local pop-up consignment sale that comes into my town twice a year. I'm used to having to pay at least like $10, $20, $30 for this brand. But I found it for $2.99. It sold for $149.99 on eBay. That was my full asking price. It was promoted at 3%, so I made a net profit on that jacket of $122.58. I wish I could just sell stuff like this, but if I only sourced items that I could sell for $100 plus profit, I would be picking up like one item a week, and I wouldn't be able to earn as much as I do, so I don't only source those kinds of items, but man, that's the dream. The next sale was a great sale as well. It was a cabbie piece, which is why I've been picking up more cabbies, because I've been finding a lot of success with cabbie lately. It was this Checkmate navy and orange plaid coat in a women's size extra large. It was made of a wool blend. I found it at my local Goodwill for $12.99, but it sold for my full asking price of $99.99, and I made a net profit of $73.90. And that was only listed for like a couple of days, I'm pretty sure. It sold so fast, it sold so well. I was extremely pleased with that sale, and like I said, it has caused me to start picking up cabbie again. So moving on to Sunday, which was January 1st, we started off the new year okay. It wasn't like with a bang, but I did make some sales. The first sale was over on Poshmark, and it was a pair of boots by the North Face. They were the Nuptse style. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I've sold a couple boots in this style now. It was a pair of black snow boots with downfill, and they were in a youth size 3. These sold for $40, and they gave me a net profit of $32 because I had $0 into them. My sister-in-law actually gave these to me, and that takes me to my next tip, which is accept anything and everything from people who want to give you items to resell. I know a lot of times people will gripe and complain on like Facebook and on Instagram about the kinds of things that they get as donations from people, but I see it as I'm going to take everything, I'm going to sell what I can. If there are things that I need to donate, I'll just go ahead and take a trip to my local thrift store and donate those items, but I'm getting stuff for free. And oftentimes it will force me to list things that maybe I'm not super excited about, but again, maybe I'll learn about the value of certain things that I didn't know had value because these things just found their way into my house as part of a donation that someone gave to me, and I'm able to learn about the value of brands that maybe I didn't know those brands had any value. That's definitely something that I learned about this particular style of snow boots from the North Face. It's because she gave me these boots that I was, running comps on them, and I realized, oh, these actually sell for a decent amount. And as I was running comps, I actually found a pair of boots that someone was selling, the same style, but in a women's size, and they were selling them for like $10 or $15. So I went ahead and bought them on Poshmark. I actually had Poshmark credit, so I don't even think I had to like pay anything for them, and I was able to sell those even faster than I sold these. And it's because I learned about this style of boot because my sister-in-law gave them to me for free. Like I shared with you, a friend of mine, he moved to the suburbs of Chicago, and before moving, he gave me, I want to say close to like 100 or 200 pieces from his own closet and from his wife's closet, stuff that they didn't wear anymore. And a lot of it was stuff that I realized I would pass on when I was at the thrift store, but since I had gotten them from him for free, I would just go ahead and list most of the items if they were in sellable condition. And I was pleasantly surprised when I sat down to do the research on how to price certain items by how good they were. Things that I had passed on at the thrift store many times before, but was now learning, actually, maybe I should start picking that stuff up if the price is right. And I was able to learn those things because of the fact that I got these items from my friend. Also, you just make a lot of money off of things if people are donating them to you for free. So my tip is to tell people that you resell, accept their donations, get rid of things if you have to. You can even take things to Plato's Closet and make a few bucks on each item that way. But maybe through accepting their items, you'll actually learn a lot about certain brands and their value, and you'll get some really great pieces that you wouldn't have had otherwise, and you didn't have to pay for them. The next item that sold was this new in the box Michael Kors brown and black scarf and reversible hat set. This is actually something that my husband got for Christmas from one of his students. Like I said, he teaches first grade, and in elementary school, kids typically will still give you gifts. I don't really get gifts as a high school teacher. He usually gets a lot of gift cards and stuff, but he got a lot of random stuff this year, including this, scarf and hat set. This probably came from like a TJ Maxx or Ross or something like that. He was like, I am never gonna wear this. Please just list it. And I was like, okay. So I listed it. It sold for $30, and I made a net profit of $24 off of that. And it sold within a week of being listed. That takes me to my 9th tip, which is look around your house for stuff to sell. I am always selling stuff that I no longer wear, that my husband no longer wears, that my kids no longer wear. It's stuff that I didn't have to go out and source. So I'm saving time there because I'm not having to go out and find stuff. It is stuff that I don't have to pay more money for because it's already in our house. It's a win on so many levels. And that is my 9th tip, which is if you are running low on stuff to sell and list on your reselling platforms, just look around your house, clean out your closet, look in your kitchen cabinets, look under your bathroom sink. You are going to find a ton of stuff that is just laying around collecting dust that you could be making money on. The last thing that sold for me was over on eBay, and it was this torrid hot pink midi chiffon pleated skirt. It was in a size 1X, and it had an elastic waist. You just kind of pulled it on. This was something that I got at a local consignment store during their 90% off sale, so I only had $1.40 into it. It sold for $19.90. It was promoted at 3% on eBay, so I made a net profit on that skirt of $12.58. Torrid is a great bread and butter brand. I don't ever make a killing selling it, but it does sell very consistently, and it usually doesn't sit around for too long. So I'm going to share with you all of my numbers from this particular week, but I'll also share with you how I did for the year, and then I'll share my final tip with you in regards to how I made more than $25,000 in the year 2022 in net profit from reselling part-time. So on Poshmark, I sold 7 items for a gross sales amount of $218. Once you factor in Poshmark's fees, any discounted shipping that I offered, that total drops to $170.96. I only had $11.99 as my cost of goods for those 7 items because a lot of that stuff was stuff that I got for free or stuff from around the house or just stuff that I didn't have a lot of money into. And so my net profit on Poshmark for the week was $158.97. On eBay, I sold 9 items, which is 2 items more than Poshmark, and my gross sales amount was $414.87. Once you factor in eBay's fees and maybe any times that I charged less for shipping than what I had to pay to ship the item out, that total drops to $338.43. My cost of goods for those 9 items was $31.11, and so I made a net profit on eBay of $307.32, which is almost double the amount that I earned on Poshmark. Just another reason why I love cross-listing and why I'm so thankful that I don't sell only on one platform. On Mercari, I sold 4 items for a gross sales amount of $105. Once you factor in Mercari's fees, that total drops to $89.45. I had $17.73 as my cost of goods, and so my net profit on Mercari was $72.22. I had one Depop sale for $30 as my gross sales amount. Once you factor in Depop's fees and the fact that I paid for shipping, that total drops to $25.75. I had $4.99 into the item, and so my net profit on Depop was $15.53. In total, I sold 21 items for a gross sales amount of $767.87. My profit, once you factor in shipping and fees, dropped to $624.59. I had $65.82 cents as my cost of goods for those 21 items. And so my net profit was $558.77 for the week. In the month of December, I made a net profit of $1,855.28, which brought my 2022 net profit for the year to $27,531.87. My final tip for you is that the goal I had set for myself for the year 2022 in net profit was actually $40,000. And you can tell I was nowhere near that. I only made 68.8% of my goal. I missed it by 31.2%. But that being said, my final tip for you is set goals that are a little bit beyond what you know you can do. And the reason for that is if you set goals higher than what you know you can probably achieve, it's going to cause you to push yourself even harder than you would have if you set a super attainable goal. I like to set big, lofty goals for myself because it forces me to stretch myself. It forces me to get creative in trying to figure out how I can possibly achieve this crazy goal that I've set for myself. And ultimately, what it does is it causes me to make more money than I would have made if I set a really attainable goal. I did not meet my goal, but I do firmly believe that I made more money than I would have if I set a really easy goal for myself. I also think that I didn't meet my goal because of a lot of outside circumstances. You know, there was a recession, the economy is horrible. There were just a lot of things that happened that were outside of my control. If it were a regular year and all of those things hadn't happened, could I have reached my $40,000 goal? Maybe, because in the year 2021, I also set a pretty lofty goal for myself of, I want to say 30,000 or 35,000, and I not only met that goal, but I surpassed it. This year, I made even less than I did last year in net profit from reselling, but I think that I did better than I would have if I had set a lower goal for myself. In the year 2023, I have set an even loftier and more ridiculous goal for myself of $45,000 in net profit from my part-time reselling business, and I have different things that I'm going to try to make that happen. Is it going to happen? I don't know, but again, because it is such a way out there number, I'm already brainstorming and trying to think of different things that I can do to hit that number. And as a result, I think I'm going to make more money than I would have if I didn't set such a big goal. So that is my final tip for you, which is to raise the bar on yourself, push yourself, and you might just surprise yourself. I hope that at the end of this video, you find yourself motivated to get out there and make as many sales as you can with the new knowledge that you have in regards to what I did in the year 2022 to help me make more than $25,000 as a part-time reseller. $25,000 is not what I wanted to make, but it is nothing to sneeze at. And because of that $25,000, my family was able to live a lot more comfortably. And I hope that this information helps you to earning your first 1,000, your first 10,000, maybe your first 100,000 in the year 2023. I'm so excited for all of the things that you're going to achieve. And I hope that this video is a small part of your success in the year 2023. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button on your way out, and I hope that I see you in the next one. Bye.